Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Greco, and today I'll be taking you into a deep dive into what topic that affects athletes all over the world. And that topic would be gender inequality in sports. To me, I think when we look at sports, they may look more equal than ever. But that being said, I think that when we look at the participation rates along with the leadership roles given out and even the cultural expectations that we see, the playing field is way far from even and something needs to change. So, one thing you may ask is what gender inequality is. And gender inequality is when a certain gender has more power or feels like they have more power over the opposite gender. And we see a lot of that in sports today and just all around. Sports have always been on the male dominant side, even though girls and women participate in sports today more than they have ever. Major gaps still exist in who plays, who gets to make decisions when it comes to sports, and who is supported. Some cultural expectations and institutional policies all play a role, along with historical norms. Research has constantly shown that these inequalities shape not just who gets to participate in the sports, but also how athletes are treated and whose voices matter inside of the organizations and programs. So you may ask where the inequality begins and where it comes from to begin with. Gender inequality starts early, way earlier than what most people think, including myself. A study that was out of Brazil looked at physical daily activity levels among school age children and how, if they were meeting them or not. And the numbers, to me, in my opinion, were pretty crazy. 87.4% of girls were not meeting the recommended daily activity levels, and 77.6 of percent of boys were not meeting them as well. Uh, that gap is bigger than we think. So now you may ask why. Like, why is there such a big gap in between those? And the research showed that it wasn't because that the girls weren't interested in sports or preferred to just stay at home and not play sports, but they were expected to not do that. They were expected to do more things around the house, like chores, and on the other hand, boys were encouraged to go outside and join sports organizations and clubs and programs. And in rural areas, these expectations were even stronger. That being said, I think that this tells us something pretty important. I think it tells us that gender inequality isn't just a problem behind closed doors and a policy problem, but it's also a socialization problem. Kids being taught at such a young age what is appropriate just based on their gender is not right for the mind. And these early messages, they don't go away. I mean, you follow they follow you throughout life. Even when girls and women overcome early social barriers and stay in sports, they run into a new challenge as they get older. And that challenge is how the structure of sports organizations are themselves and how they're ran. For example, there was a study found in Croatian Olympic sports organizations, and that study showed that only 11% of leadership positions, were held by women. So that's showing that that means that there's women participating in sports, but they're not getting the chance to lead them and affect them. And with that being said, that affects everything from scheduling to media coverage and even things like budget decisions. And female leaders in these studies have came out and said that they've felt like they've been excluded from decision making and they feel like they've been undervalued. And also being left out of networking opportunities is crucial because it gets that gives them a chance to get their names heard and voices heard. All that being said, there's a few things that still need to change. Even though a ton of progress has been made over the past few years, researchers point to three main areas that we still need to understand better as outsiders. The first one would be how to close the youth participation gap before the whole concept of gender inequality gets too deeply rooted into their brain because excuse me, yet again they are learning the inequality things at such a young age, and it's going to carry with them, and we need to learn how to fix that and make it so they don't carry that throughout life in sports with them. The second one is which policy models create long-term change. And the third one would be the role of media economic investment in shaping how society values women's sports. So again, making women get their voices heard and names seen is huge. Not even just in person, but even online, because media has taken over in so many aspects in the world, especially in the sports world. After all that being said, I think that there are a lot of key takeaways, but I narrowed it down to the most important three, in my opinion. And together, these studies reveal, I think, the major truths and expose the organizations. The first one would be inequality begins socially. So, like I said before, when kids are being taught at such a young age what is appropriate and okay just based off what gender they are, I think that that's horrible, and it leads them through life, and it sticks with them forever. And if they tackle the sports industry, it's going to lead them in there too, and that's the last thing that the sports world needs right now, ever, honestly. The second one would be inequality becomes structural. Women face barriers in leadership and recognition, excuse me, all the time. It's always been a problem for women to get their names seen and their voices heard, and for them to become as dominant and popular as the male side of sports are. Um, and third, it needs to be institutional action involving government, schools, and even sports organizations are is very important and could help a lot. The third big area of research compares how different countries addresses gender inequality and what they do specifically. So first off, Canada uses voluntary incentive programs, and organizations get grant funding if they increase female participation. So that being said, this approach has successfully narrowed down participation gaps and has allowed women to be more heard and seen in sports. Spain uses legal requirements. So sports organizations have to meet equity standards by law. That's not by choice, it's by law. And that approach may create long-term structural change, but it can also push back from organizations who feel forced. Now you may ask, what does this research even suggest? What does it say? And honestly, neither method alone is close to enough, but I think that the most effective solutions depend on three things: a country's political system, their cultural norms, and their willingness to accept reform. A combination of policy, funding, and cultural change is necessary to make real progress and help with these women. So, at the end of the day, gender inequality in sports isn't caused by one specific thing, and it also can't be solved by one specific thing either. It's a combination of both cultural messages, structural barriers, and also national policies. That being said, research shows that a real change is possible with the right mix of all of education, the right leaders taking charge, and the right support. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who cares about sports, and let me know what you think. Thank you. All that being said, there's a few things that still need to change. Even though a ton of progress has been made over the past few years, researchers point to three main areas that we still need to understand better as outsiders. The first one would be how to close the youth participation gap before the whole concept of gender inequality gets too deeply rooted into their brain, because excuse me, yet again they are learning the inequality things at such a young age, and it's going to carry with them, and we need to learn how to fix that and make it so they don't carry that throughout life in sports with them. The second one is which policy models create long term change. And the third one would be the role of media economic investment in shaping how society values women's sports. So again, making women get their voices heard and names seen is huge. Not even just in person, but even online, because media has taken over in so many aspects in the world, especially in the sports world.